Hey everyone, and welcome to our second video in page creation in our Apollo project, a project set up with an ApostropheCMS Backend and an Astro Frontend. In the last video, we looked a little bit at how page routing works with the .slug file and template mapping. We're going to go back into that a little bit. We also, in the last video, covered what an Astro component looks like with the front matter, the template area, the script, and the style blocks. And we'll see just a little bit of that in this video. But what we're going to basically do today is look through the very simple default page that's part of our Apollo project. And we're going to look at the back end and the front end. So for those of you coming from an Apostrophe development background, the back end is going to look very familiar to you. It's just a normal schema field that we would have for any vanilla Apostrophe CMS project. For the front end, if you're coming from an Astro development background, that too will look quite normal to you. And it's really the tying of the two together that gives this project its hybrid nature. So let's dig back into structure a little bit and talk about how we create a page in an Apostrophe Astro hybrid project. So again, the back end contains all of our Apostrophe code. Most of that Apostrophe code is going to live in the modules. Remember, Apostrophe CMS has a inheritance model where modules at the front end both inherit and extend modules that are loaded into our node modules through NPM packages. So when we are going to add project level code changes, we're going to want to do that mostly in this modules folder. In the Apollo project, as we'll see, we've also got some helper files that reside in the lib folder that we load into our code in the modules project. So like I said, there's both improving and extending of modules from the NPM packages at project level. If we have a core module, for example, the home page is a core module, we extend that in a slightly, or I should say improve that in a slightly different way. We want to make sure that we're mimicking the path that is the path that is present in the node modules package. So when we install the Apostrophe extension, the modules all reside in a namespace of @ApostropheCMS. So if we wanted to improve the homepage, that homepage is the root page of our page tree. Typically in a project, it's parked at the root of the page tree. We would create a homepage folder inside of the @ApostropheCMS folder, inside of the modules folder at project level. So what's going to happen is now this index.js file is going to inherit all of the functionality, all of the handlers and methods and so forth of the core homepage file, homepage module located in the node modules project. So you can see this homepage does a number of things. It imports some widgets. We'll talk about that in a second when we dig into the default page. It also imports two different schema fields, sets of schema fields, one from the hero fields.js file and one from the slideshow fields.js file. These just basically help us to replicate the schema fields from different components across our entire project. And then in addition, it has some custom fields. So let's look at this in a little bit more simple module. Let's look in the default page module. So if we open that up, since this is not a core module and it's just a project level module, it's not within a namespace folder. And instead, if we look inside the index.js, what we can see is that it has this statement at the top of its export default. So again, the code in our Apostrophe CMS project in this case is ESM. So we have an export default, and the top level field within that export default object is extend. And what that says is that we want to co-opt or use all of the core features, all the core methods, handlers, things like that from the @ApostropheCMS page type module. So the difference between this and what is happening with the homepage is that in the homepage, we're improving that homepage module. So anytime another module in our project extends the homepage, it'll get all of the functionality of the module that's in the node modules folder, but also all the extra functionality we've added within this upper level, this project level modules at ApostropheCMS homepage. So within this index.js page. Whereas this particular module, the default page module, is going to inherit all of the functionality of the page type module, but then it's going to add functionality that's unique to this particular new module. So it's a new instance of an ApostropheCMS page type. So in this case, we're first passing some options in. So this is one way that you can configure your modules. And in this case, we're adding a label that will let the content manager know what type of page they're adding. We're going to call this the default page. And then the second thing that it has is a fields object. So the fields object is how you are going to add fields into your page for the content manager to then add content or to make selections about how a page is going to be displayed. In this case, we have a single field we're adding, and the name of that field is main, and it has a schema type of area. So what are areas? Well, I went over this a bit in the core concepts, but basically an area is a section of a page, or it could be a section of a piece or a widget that you can add other widgets into. And those widgets are going to be things like a slideshow widget. So you can add slideshow content. They can also be things like layout widgets, like a grid layout widget or a rows widget. And we'll see this in practice. But basically what this allows you to do is it allows you to give the content manager the power to create unique page layouts. So even though each time they're going to be using a default page, each time that default page can look different based on the layout widgets and the content widgets they add into this main area. And then the second thing that we have in the fields object is a group area. This just organizes all of your added fields. And in this case, it's a simple one. So we just have this one main field, and that's put onto a basics tab. And we'll see that when we spin the project up. If we look at a more complex page, like the home page, and we have a number of different fields added. We have a layout field that's a type of select. We have a hero section, which is a type of object. Showcase slideshow section, which is an object. And then finally, another area field. This one also happens to be named main, but you can call it anything you want. Additionally, you can have multiple area types on a single page if you desire. And we'll see that when we look at the piece page types. And then down here, because we have more fields that we've added, our group is, of course, more complex. So you can read all about this in the Apostrophe documentation. You can read about all the other schema field types, and you can read more about how you can organize your fields and your added fields and groups. So going back to the default page, you notice that we have in the options for this area type, we have a Get Widgets group. So in many times, what you'll do in a project is instead of having something like this Get Widgets group, which we imported from this helper, you would actually list out the widgets that would be allowed to be added into that main area by the content editor. In this case, I wanted to make sure that across my project, I kept those widget groups the same. And rather than having to retype it each time, I created a little function here, Get Widget Groups, that returns the widgets that we want. The other thing that this does for us is it allows us to decide whether or not the layout widgets, the rows widget and the grid layout widget, are included. Because as I said, you can add areas inside of widgets. So if we had a layout widget and we kept putting more and more layout widgets inside, the overall design would get very complex and it would look a little bit odd. So let's just take a quick glance at this Get Widgets group. Again, this is custom for this project. You can use this in your own project if you want, but it's not a necessary or part of ApostropheCMS. It's something that I put together custom. So here's the helpers. And you can see that we're loading in the area widgets script here. And within that, we have a couple constants that we're exporting. We have the widget group, and then within the widget group, we have a set of layout widgets and a set of content widgets. So again, the layout widgets are things like a grid layout or a rows layout, and the content ones allow you to add images, videos, rich text. Also, we have some custom ones here: a slideshow, a hero section, accordion. Okay, so basically, the way we create a new page type is we're going to make a folder for it. And by convention, that has -page at the end. And then we're going to create an index.js file within that folder to contain our schema fields and other options for that module. And we're going to extend the ApostropheCMS page type. The only other thing that we need to do besides this for creating a page on the back end is once we create our folder with our index.js file inside, we need to update our app.js file in order to register that new module. And so you can see all of our widgets are registered in here. And right here is our default page. You can also notice that within this registration, each of the different modules gets an object passed to it. These are, for the most part, in the Apollo project empty, but it allows you to pass project-wide options to your different modules. And those options are going to depend on what the particular module is. I just realized I had forgotten one more step. Again, we have our default page module, our index.js created for that. We have registered it in our app.js, but in order to expose that page then for the editor to be able to select it, we have to add it one additional place. So here in the modules folder, in the @ApostropheCMS folder, so we're we're improving a core module. We also need to add it to the page module. So looking in here, this is going to improve the core level @ApostropheCMS page module. So we don't need an extends here. And what we can see here is in this types array, we also need to add our default page. So right now, this Apollo project has the home page, of course. Then it also has an article page, which is project level, so we don't need to prefix it with this @ApostropheCMS, and then a default page that we just added. Okay, so now we have our default page set up on our back end. So I'm just going to split my screen here so we can keep that up, and let's jump to the front end. So again, the front end is where all of our Astro code is going to be. It's largely going to be in this source. Let's make sure we're selected here. Oops, sorry about that. It's going to be in our source folder. And again, all of the templates for our pages are going to be in our templates folder. And they are going to be mapped. So basically, when Apostrophe goes ahead and delivers back what page type should be used for the particular URL, the layout function will then go into the index.js file, templates index.js file, figure out which component should be loaded and attach. So here for our default page, we're attaching the default page component, and that's right up here, default page.astro, and it's in the same folder. So just to remind you, within our Astro config, we're passing that our templates mapping should come from the source templates folder, just to remind you. Okay, so now let's take a look at that default page. So here at the top, we're importing the Apos area from our Apostrophe Astro extension. So this is located within the node modules folder of our front end. And what this does is it provides a helper that will cycle through all of the widgets that have been added to an area, field type of area, and it will return the rendered the rendered markup for that particular widget. So we can pass in any number of widgets through that area. So this front matter also basically makes the data from the Astro prop, the APOS data prop, available for us to use. In this case, we're deconstructing out 3 different pieces of data, 3 different data objects, although we're only using the page in this case. So the page is going to give us all the content that's been entered into the schema fields of the page that we can then use to output into this template. But we can also get other things like the user. So what the user is going to give us is if someone is logged in, it'll give us who they are, and it will also give us what their permissions are. So can they edit something? Can they view something? Can they publish something? And then in this case, we also have the query that we're delivering back. So the query is just in case we want to get any of the URL query parameters to do something with the template data on the page. And then we're doing one further deconstruction here to get the main schema field from the page data. So again, over here, our area schema type is named main. And so any data that the user adds into the main area is going to be exposed to the template through the page.main. Okay, and then our template here is really simple. We've just got a section with a couple of classes on it, and then in that section, we are using the APOS area construct and passing in that the area we want it to interpret or return the markup for is the main area that we deconstructed up here from the page data. Okay, so let's see how that actually works. And let's just go ahead and spin things up. So here I'm already in the backend ApostropheCMS section of the repo. So one of the things we have to do is we have to do an export of the environment variable so that our front end and back end can talk. So we have the APOS external front key, and we just give it a string. I'm using nom here. So we export that, and then we npm run dev in order to bring our back end up. The Veep build is going to go relatively quickly. Okay, so now our back end is up. And now we're going to navigate over here to our front end in another terminal instance. So I've got 2 terminal instances going right now, one for the back end, one for the front end. And again, we're going to export that environment variable with the same exact string. And again, this could be anything. So we go ahead and export that. And then once again, we're going to bring that up. This time, the build process, this very first time, is going to be a little bit noisy and a little bit longer. We won't actually see it here until we load in the page, but it's actually going to build a lot of the theme assets once we do the initial page load of that front page in. So let's go ahead and switch over to Chrome now. Let's do a reload. Okay, so here we're in localhost 3000. This is the ApostropheCMS backend. Basically, we're not going to do anything with this, but when you're developing locally, you can use this a little bit for troubleshooting just to make sure that your front end is up and running and that it's connected successfully. So if you get some type of error, you can check to make sure that your backend server is sensing your front end status. So that's at localhost 3000. That's the normal port that ApostropheCMS runs on. That can be changed if you want. And in fact, in production deployment, a lot of times you will have to change this port. So localhost 4321 is where Astro runs normally. And you can see this is now the whole Apollo front end spun up and displaying. I'm actually already already logged in as an admin here, so I can do pretty much anything I want. So let's go ahead and add a new default page. So we go here to our page menu, click on that, and it opens the page manager. Here we have a listing of all of our pages and their relative hierarchy. We can move these pages. We can move these pages. We can drag and drop them to different places in the tree if we want to. We can change their levels if they're children of other pages. And we can also create a new page. So click on the new page. And now this page editor is going to pop up. In this case, the default page is, well, the default. So it pops us immediately into a default page type. You can see that there's two other page types in this project, an article page and a home page. But we wanted to change the default, so we're going to give this a new title. That's going to set the slug. You can see over here, we can now navigate to this through this URL slug. And next up, we can start to add content. So let me point out just a couple of other things about this. So remember, in our code, our main area was grouped in the Basics tab. So you can see it's showing up here in the Basics tab. We also have an SEO extension running. So that's creating this extra tab here that allows us to set SEO for this particular page. So now, again, if we wanted to, we could start adding content here. And that would show up nicely. The other thing that we can do is we can go over onto the page itself and add the content in context. And so this button up here has a drop down that allows us to choose a couple of different options. We can publish this page directly, which doesn't make exact sense because there's no content yet. We can publish it and then immediately go to the view of it, save it as a draft, or save it as a draft and preview. So I'm going to do this last action. So it's already selected, so I can just hit it. And you can see there's no content on the page yet. All we have is the header that's common to all of our pages and the footer that's common to all of our pages. So now if we go up here to edit, we now see our main content area is back. And we can go ahead, for example, and add a row. We can choose to change the what rows we're adding or what columns we're adding into that row. And again, we can choose to add the content here, or we can save that rows layout and then add it directly onto the page. So for example, we can go ahead and add an image. This is just an image placeholder. Whoops. We can go ahead and select an image, save that. We can, if we want to, click on this little button here, and we can actually do things like recrop that image. And then we go ahead and save that. And you see it's displayed nicely on our page. And we can go ahead and do things like add rich text into here. If we wanted to, we could add another row into here. There's a lot of flexibility that we give to the content manager to be able to create the content that they want. And just for one quick second, snapping back over to Visual Studio Code, you can see all the different calls that are coming in from the Astro front end to the Apostrophe backend. And you can see scrolling back up here, when the front page, when the home page loaded in, we did do a bunch of processing of style assets that are going to show up in your console. So it's not something that you need to worry about. Okay, so just to recap what we've seen, in order to create a page within our ApostropheCMS Astro Hybrid project, first thing that you typically do is you go into your modules folder in the backend, create that folder for your page as well as an index.js file. Within that index.js file, you create your fields with all the different schema types that you may need. Again, you can go to the documentation, see what those schema types are, see what other things you can configure as far as methods and handlers. And in the back end, you also have to register it in your app.js. Finally, you have to go ahead and put your new page into the types array in the @ApostropheCMS/page module at project level. Then back over on the front end in the Astro side, you're going to want to go into the source templates. You're going to want to create a new component for your newly added page. Within that newly added component, you're going to want to pull in any helpers you need, like Apos area. You're also going to want to pull in the all the data that you need within the front matter. Then you're going to want to add your at minimum template and potentially also styling block and script block if you need any client-side JavaScript for that page. And finally, you need to map your new component. That way Astro knows when to serve that template. So you need to map that in the source templates index.js file. So in the next video, we're going to take a look at a slightly different type of page. Rather than a generic page type, we're going to be looking at a piece page type. And piece page types require 2 layouts, and we're going to talk about exactly how those work. So we'll see you in the next video.